Welcome to the WanderLearn Show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I review my predictions of 2024 as well as go into my predictions for 2025. I did 10 predictions last year, and I have 7 predictions this year, and I royally screwed up last year. It was my worst performance ever. Let's review what I did last year, what I got wrong, and then we'll talk about my predictions for 2025. So here are my 10 predictions for 2024 and why I gave myself only 4 out of 10 points. Number 1, I predicted that Donald Trump would lose the Republican nomination. Wrong. Number 2, I predicted that they would nominate Nikki Haley. That's wrong too. Number 3, I said that the Republican nominee will beat Biden. At best, I'll give myself half a point because in a sense, that's kind of right, sort of, but not really, because of course Biden wasn't the nominee, and I said that Donald Trump has a weak chance of beating him anyway if he did get nominated. Number 4, my first prediction I got right, which is that Australia would have flooding that would kill 50 people at least. Well, it turns out that 200 people died in floods in Australia. Climate change is having an impact there as well. So the other prediction that I got half right is that Bitcoin would double in value in 2024. It more than doubled in value. I said that it would go to 80,000 and that it would end the year below 80,000. Well, it's right around 100,000 at the end. Well, it's something like 90,000 actually right now. It went over to 108,000 during the year. So I was bullish. Doubling in value is hugely bullish, but I wasn't bullish enough. I give myself half a point for that one because it was over 80,000. Ethereum is the only one that I really nailed this prediction. I predicted a very specific price, $3,333 at the end of the year. That would be the price at the close of the year. And as I'm recording this, with just a couple of days left in the year, that's exactly the price it currently at. Now, obviously, it's fluctuating, but pretty damn accurate prediction. So I give myself a full point for that. I said that the S&P would grow 7% this year. That's totally off. It grew 27% this year. So I give myself 0 points for that. My 8th prediction was that the ANC in South Africa would, for the first time in 30 years, lose its majority seats. And that is exactly what happened. They only got about 40% of the vote. Number 9, another prediction I got wrong is that Jimmy Carter would die. He's alive and well, thank God. And number 10 is that I would finish the manuscript for my book, which I completely biffed on that one too, about only 60% done on that. So if you add it all up, 3 solidly good predictions, 2 half points, that gives me a total of 4 points. And I'm being generous with myself. Terrible year for me for predictions. Let's hope that 2025 is going to be better. So what am I predicting for 2025? I've got 7 predictions. So let's dive right in. The first one is, again, a kind of controversial one to a certain extent, is that we're going to have a global recession that's going to crush the U.S. economy. It's going to crush, of course, everybody's economy. And why is that? A lot of times people want to know, well, where do I get these prediction ideas from? Well, in this particular case, it's the fact that the yield curve has been inverted for longer than any other times in history, deeper than any other time in history. And whenever the yield curve inverts, a recession comes. But the recession comes 6 to 24 months later. So it just uninverted actually in September of 2024. So if, roughly a year it might take to actually the shit hit the fan, that would happen probably around September 2025. It could easily happen before that. So I think that's going to be a pretty nasty one. And number 2 prediction is kind of related to that, is that the unemployment rate will double. Currently, it's at 4.2%. You're going to expect about an unemployment rate of 8.4% in 2025. And here's my most controversial prediction, is that Bitcoin will lose half its value. Right now, it's hovering around $100,000, and I expect it to go down to $50,000. It might go up to $150,000 briefly during the year. I'm not saying it's going to go straight down the toilet from the beginning, but once the recession hits, Bitcoin will go down with all the other assets, including the stock market and real estate and things like that. Number 4, the S&P 500, which measures the stock market, is going to go down at least 1,000 points. At least 1,000 points. So we're talking right now, the S&P is around 6,000 points. So expect it to go below 5,000 points at some point this 2025. Number 5 prediction, which is there will be a ceasefire in Ukraine. A lot of people ask me to give my predictions for Ukraine. I think that it's going to be a ceasefire for 2 reasons. Well, actually, just one reason. One reason is that both Ukraine and Russia are just exhausted. Ukraine is mainly exhausted because of lack of men. Their will to fight is not as exciting and as enthusiastic as it once was since they've lost momentum. It's become a stalemate for all this year with Russia making incremental gains. Meanwhile, Russia is suffering a lot economically. It's finally all the sanctions and all the stuff that the West has tried to do against Russia is finally having a bit of an effect. And mainly because the price of petroleum has gone down in half. And as a result, the Russian ruble has basically lost half its value as well. So with the Russian ruble and the petroleum down the tank, it's really hurting Russia, not to mention the loss of men that they've incurred as well. So I think Putin's hope for getting all of Ukraine and making it an easy fight, he's realizing, he needs to wrap this baby up. And Donald Trump might help him negotiate a favorable outcome for him, or maybe not favorable, but at least acceptable. Number 6 prediction is that the bromance between Elon Musk and Donald Trump will end. I think these 2 titanic personalities just can't get along forever. And finally, number 7 prediction. A lot of people ask me to predict some of the things about the current administration, the new administration for Donald Trump. 5 of his campaign promises will fail. These are the most outrageous ones. Number 1, that he was going to deport 13 million people. I think at most he's going to deport about 1 million people, again, just for show. And it's just going to be, it's very hard to deport people in the U.S. legal system because they're going to fight it every way. Number 2, death penalty for drug dealers. I don't think that's going to happen either. We can barely execute people who have actually committed mass murders and things like that. We're slow at doing that, so I can't imagine us all of a sudden executing a bunch of drug dealers. Number 3, his promise of a 60% tariff on Chinese goods and a 20% tariff on all goods. That would be highly inflationary and bad for the economy. Almost all economists agree on this. So I just don't think he's going to pass on that. What he will do is maybe like a tariff for show to kind of like say, hey, I tried my best. Maybe a 10% tariff, something like that, which is not going to be good either. And specifically, he'll target like certain goods, things from China. It's like maybe cars from China and say, okay, I'll knock a 50% tariff on that. Just again, to kind of save face to some extent. Number 4 promise that will not come true is that he'll abolish the Department of Education. Good luck with that. I know Elon Musk's Doge department is going to do its best to try to cut back the size of the government, but that's going to be really hard to do. And I think they won't be able to abolish the Department of Education. Maybe they'll be able to cut some of its budget. That I could see happening. And then finally, the 5th promise I just don't see happening that Donald Trump made is that there'll be military action against the cartels. This is going to be invading Mexico's sovereign space to go out there with special forces and going in and attack. It's possible. I mean, we did it with Iraq and Afghanistan. We went in and invaded when Osama bin Laden attacked us in 2001. We went ahead and attacked there. So we could do the same thing with our neighbor. But I just don't see it happening. I could be wrong, but those are my predictions. I just think in general, a lot of people misread Trump. They don't understand that a lot of times he just throws out these outrageous claims and outrageous demands and outrageous ideas, mainly as a negotiating tactic. He wants to get people to be on the defensive and concede at least something to him. At least he can declare a victory on that. And that's just a negotiating tactic. He likes to push people's buttons and just get a rise out of people. Just sometimes that's what he does, and he's kind of comical in that way. Not funny for people who are easily offended, but for his fan base, it's hilarious. Those are my predictions. What are your predictions? And tell me what you think. Oh, I'll throw in a bonus prediction just for fun. That I'll finish my damn manuscript for the Unseen Africa by 2025, or you can kill me. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn. Enjoy 2025. Happy New Year. And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn-Podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to WanderLearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember F. Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. F. Tapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question? Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at WanderLearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.